don't wanna be friends. I don't wanna be friends. I don't wanna be friends. I don't wanna be friends. Can we start over again? Cause I don't wanna be friends.
No.
I have this PhD because I had Pluto in discernment. I knew what white people to fuck with. I didn't go to an HBCU. Everybody on my committee was white. All my advisors was white, okay? Kept it blackity black. I kept it real for us because it wasn't enough of us. Because they don't give it to us. They don't let us have it. Okay, that's another story for another day. But how do you think ancestral worship helps black social justice movements?
Say that again.
How do you think ancestral worship helps black social justice movements?
I think when we actually start doing ancestral worship, it'll help black social justice movements.
Okay.
We're not doing it yet. There's a lot of performance. So this is movement work is something that's been I've been engaged with for a long time, and it's something I've also recently been falling out of, right, because of the gatekeeping, because of this focus on some kind of utopian understanding of where we're going to go without understanding the mechanisms and means in which we have to get there, right? We can't talk about harm and only addressing harm through accountability if we also don't want to talk about revolution and picking up things in order to be able to create our own space and way. There has to be, again, the left and the right, up and down, the masculine and feminine. I don't think we have not taken seriously the power of ancestral veneration in our movement spaces. We've not taken seriously what it means to sit down and call in and listen to and feed and grow and learn from our ancestors. Because if we won't even talk to our elders, who've been through this, we might not have liked the means in which they went about it. You might call them weak or, cowtown to white folks. But let me tell you something. Would you sit your ass there at that counter and have a hose put on you? Would you sit there and actually have dogs sicked on you? Would you sit there in the middle of the night and organize and bring farmers together to create unions in the middle of the damn clan country, right? So the image, this idea, I hate that damn T-shirt. I thought you were
supposed to say Nene Leakes T-shirt.
I'm done.
Girl, I thought you was going to bring up Nene Leakes. I was like, bitch, I'm out. Peace. I'm dead like Barone.
No, not that one. But it's the same difference, right?
I'm not my ancestors. I'll beat your ass.
No, yeah, I'm not my ancestors. It's like, no, bitch, you not. Because we sitting here on social media talking about I'm not my ancestors when your ancestors were on the damn streets. Literally, getting their ass beat. You know what I mean? And so I think if we won't even honor our elders while they're here in these movement spaces and talk across generational divides and be able to actually learn and hear one another across generational, generational shifts, then how the hell are we going to listen to our ancestors? So until we take seriously, again, spirit and the connection of spirit and land in our movements, they're not going to move us in ways that black folks need to be moved. Because in order for us to have our freedom, we have to, again, imagine a possibility of us being here and being community with one another outside of the thing we call the United States, right? But if we can't understand that the United States is a nation state, is a construct, which is built upon, we can talk about it's built by, enslaved folks on stolen land. But what that really means is founded on anti-blackness. It's founded on literally being against anything black or black related and commodifying us. We have to be able to understand our ancestors, and again, land and spirit will have to show us that we can still survive and thrive and be beautiful together, but it's got to sit outside this thing we call the nation state. So we have to be able to have the possibility of not voting Republican or Democrat. It's like the system itself, fuck a Democrat or Republic. None of them are for us. So what does it look like to imagine, again, calling down spirit, a new way? So we've not even done that yet. You can do a little pouring out of some water and talk about your ancestors, right, in a performative way, but you still ain't fed them, right? You still ain't giving them no light. They ain't got no flowers to feed off of, no cigarettes, no coffee, no energy, no liquor, no masculine, feminine energy to kind of draw up and to be able to do it. All we're doing is the reproduction of what society tells us is movement work. which is a protest, which is a calling in, which is telling black women that they're supposed to somehow save this fucked up country again, right? You know, that's not going to save us. What's going to save us is us coming together and really calling down the gods, calling down the ancestors, and thinking about a different way of being. So we've not done it yet, but I think once we do it, I'm going to be interested to see what's going to happen.
I imagine a reality where African Americans are practicing ancestral worship and allowing the methods of accomplishing their missions to be informed by spirit. Because spirit is collective consciousness.
Yes.
And in order for us to successfully mobilize as a collective, we have to all be tapped into that same consciousness.
Yes.
We must move as one body and as one unit.
Yes.
And I have to, I know that the effects of white supremacy and slavery are disorienting on the modern day African American, but that's what I brought Dr. T on here to do. We are, this conversation is to invite in that change so that it inspires for someone to tap into that possibility, to tap into the divinity within yourself so that you can go out there and say, okay, I'm ready to get here and get started and get it done. You don't have to wait on it.
No.
You don't have to. There are people that are interested and there are people that are waking up.
Yes.
It is, share this video with as many people as possible so that they can have their minds, they can have their minds cleansed because they've been brainwashed. And what we are offering to you all is an intellectual, spiritual bath to wash away your anxieties and to help you all to empathize and understand with people that are kin to you and our allies. Because I'm thinking about how the last quote unquote civil rights movement happened in the 1960s, and they used religion and spirituality to mobilize together.
Yes, all of them did.
Now the reality is not everybody's Christian anymore, and a lot of people are leaving the church. We have a lot of people that out here that are lone witches.
But see, this is why
Dollar Tree priestesses.
But what you just said about it has to be a collective consciousness. This is why it's completely against this idea of the lone witch. Collective consciousness means we cannot do this alone. Y'all see how I did that? Keep going. You've got to be in community. No revolution was ever led by one person, and stop this idea of venerating even just a Dr. King or Malcolm X. They were great men, but let's be real. King was not in them damn kitchens cooking the meals, organizing and making sure that people were on time, being able to do the watching. And that was black women and queer folks doing that work. So it's a collective consciousness, and you put that charismatic, usually cishead man in front of it to someone represent a collective embodiment of what usually is young folks, black women, black femme, and queer folks doing that organizing work together, because it's a community effort. So let's stop trying to reproduce whiteness and white folks' way of being and come back to the embodiment of what we're supposed to be, which is a collective consciousness, exactly what you're talking about, right? To get liberation.
Hit that flame emoji. Hierarchy as a social construct that is, we're talking about hierarchy as a social construct absent from power, domination, or whatever other social force that hierarchy usually is attached to or merged with. Hierarchy is necessary because it teaches you how to go through life and what needs to be done to move up or down in their lifetime. I also believe that hierarchy teaches you about your role, your rules, and the responsibilities that you're supposed to have, and you're supposed to operate within a certain parameters. Even in Iyanla's Tapping the Power Within, at the end of the book, if your ass can get past page 200, there's a spiritual code of conduct that you all have failed to abide by. And I even failed to abide by it. But I'm doing better than y'all because at least I try. I'm so messy. I'm so shady. Oh my God. I'm just fucking with y'all. I ain't shit. All right, so what are your thoughts about hierarchies in social justice initiatives? Necessary, unnecessary?
That's a nuanced question that requires a nuanced answer, right? Because again, it goes to how you what do you put behind, like how do you define the hierarchy? Is it a power struggle? Is it a domination thing, or is it a way to understand one's place within a larger structure, right? And those things get conflated. So I work in higher education, in and I have to work in administration, and so a lot of the words we hear now in our work are things like harm, trauma, accountability, community accountability, transformative justice, restorative justice, circles. And part of me is like, I really get that a lot of them come from indigenous practices, a lot of them come from marginalized communities that have to make their own economies, right, and make their own ways of being because they can't tap into or the resources available to them by the state are too violent. So I get that. But even within those, there still has to be a responsibility, right? There still has to be places where people have different expertise or different skill sets that as a collective make the collective strong, but you still need somebody or a group of folks to be able to harness that and bring those folks together, right? Or bring those skill sets together so that you can make, again, the community as a whole be better. I think what we have now here is that in this so-called collapse of hierarchy, you've actually then reinforced different ways of power struggle within the group, right? So even if we're saying that all of us, it's a flat structure, there is still some bitch in that whole circle that's going to still dominate some way, whether it be passive aggressively, whether it be, through gossip, whether it be through another means. You're still going to have someone who's going to fill that void of being a leader. It's just how that void is filled and how that leadership is enacted, right, will be determined by the mode or the mode set by the group. So I think that if there's already a pre-set hierarchy in terms of that they have elders who understand certain ways, that folks have certain skill sets. Are you the warrior, the intellectual, are you the teacher, those kind of different things, right? If you don't have a group or somebody who can lead that, someone will eventually lead, but it may not be in the way that is best for the community or the group, because it'll be more about their individual need to have domination in some way. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Does that make sense, y'all?
So, what you mean to tell me is that that there's a possibility that my job is to go in front of an authority with a sheet of paper and say, hello, my name is Thector. I am a middle class or poor student from Memphis, and I came here to the university and I wanted to talk about social justice, and I wanted to talk about how the administration here has not worked to keep people around like me and push people out. And so it's my job to sit there and read off a sheet of paper and bore people. And then after that, like, somebody else is going to come through with a list of demands. So, there's
a script.
Yeah, it's a script I'm supposed to follow. That's what I hear you saying.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is... What I'm saying is that since we have lost our connection to understanding how these movements have worked through time, since we have refused to actually listen to elders, actually read the past struggles and what worked and didn't work, we keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. This idea of non-hierarchy is not new. Others, mostly student movements, social justice movements in the past, remember, we're hitting 50 years. We're hitting 50 years, y'all, of a lot of these justice movements around the world. Black studies as a discipline, Africana, 50 years. A lot of the walkouts of the late 60s, we're hitting 50 years. We're at a half a century, right, of a large worldwide anti-imperialist, anti-racist struggle, right, that happened 50 years ago. We're repeating the same issues. We're repeating the same patterns, right? So what I'm saying is that student who will sit here and read and think they're actually doing something, usually is that student who has not read past page 1 of Google, right, has not ventured off page 1 of the syllabus of whatever class they're taking, if they even stepped into a Black studies or any kind of other kind of newer study discipline, right? They're probably an economics or a business major who wants to dabble in social justice because it makes them look good, because they actually see real kids struggling, right, in different communities, and they want to now have a say on their activist CV. I say that a lot, right? The activist CV in higher ed is a big thing, especially in the Ivies, right? Or especially in these elite spaces. So what I'm saying is this: if we refuse to go back to the roots, and I'm not saying go back and somehow the past was all peachy keen. There was still some fucked up stuff then too, right? There was still hierarchies that weren't great. There were still monarchies that were oppressive. There was still some kinds of patriarchy. I'm not saying that that's a utopia, because utopia is also a falsehood. What I am saying is, what are the things from the past that did work? Are we drawing from them? Are we learning from them? Are we learning from past mistakes? So that when we're coming into these movement spaces now, it's not just reactive. We're organized. We are well read. And y'all, listen, you could not be in the Black Panther parties in many different sectors if you did not read. And if you could not read, that did not prohibit you from not learning. You had to learn. You had to study and struggle. A lot of these theories talk about now came from the streets. Theorizing is not some academic thing. Most of this theorizing, particularly around systems of oppression, identity, Blackness, indigeneity, comes from the ground. Academics just stole it and then put a bunch of big words around it and then make themselves propped up and be removed from that ground, right? Ho Chi Minh literally translated Marxism into Vietnamese and then sat in the fields with peasants and taught them verbally Marxism, right? For right or wrong, these things all start in deep study, right? And so when we're talking about movement making, if you're not also reading and theorizing together, it ain't gotta be these big old words. It's like, how do we, like we're doing now, how do we think through some things? How do we rethink our ground? If you're not doing that, then again, then you're not actually doing spirituality, because African spirituality is also about learning, about being together in struggle, about being able to work things out through these kind of fundamental foundations of a community. Does that make sense?
No. Yes.
I'm done. So if y'all want to really read
My
some
name is
shit,
Thector, and that doesn't make sense.
so if y'all want to read some shit, I think some of the best things to read to start this stuff off is things like Freedom Dreams by Robin G. Kelley, anything by Fred Moten, anything by Angela Davis. You have Black Power by Kwame Ture. Anything by Walter Rodney, who did guerrilla pedagogy. Basically, he was a Caribbean intellectual who was killed by the state because of his thoughts. Right? Thoughts are more dangerous than the gun. This is why they made sure that when they brought enslaved Africans over, we were not allowed to read. We were not allowed to congregate together, right, for long periods of time. They stopped actually bringing enslaved folks from the same tribes together because that was too powerful. The religious aspects were too deep, right? That's why they prohibited us from actually practicing our religion. We learned how to take from the land to literally fly off back to Africa, right? Or to somehow, or try to use magic in ways that contorted us so that we could escape. Like slave rebellions were much more frequent than Kanye tells you, right? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like this narrative that somehow we wanted slavery to happen and we didn't do nothing, right?
Black resistance movements, bitch.
It was we always
Black
resisted.
we
always resisted.
We was resisting from the time
literally
from the time that your ancestors
literally
were motherfucking indentured servants serving goddamn Africans.
We always resisted.
They was always resistant.
And the resistance always came with spirit. Resistance is always with and through spirit. High John the Conqueror, if you in hoodoo practice, right? High John is a famous story. And essentially, no matter what kind of story it emerges into, the underlying commonality is he was a warrior, literally a warrior. In Mexico, because black folks enslaved, were in Mexico too, being enslaved. A big population outside of Oaxaca and stuff. When they congregated, it was a maroon. He led his people to freedom, and that story traveled all throughout the slave trade in New Orleans, where that became the biggest location of a slave port that brought all kinds of enslaved folks from all over the slave trade together, and they shared that story. So you have all these rebellions that kept happening, right? Because people studied. So even in enslaved times, we were still doing deep study and struggle together. So if those in bondage could do that, then you can take your little ass at 20 years old and go pick up a goddamn book and read something together, and not think you're reinventing a wheel that folks been doing. That's all I'm saying. Stop thinking we're making everything new, and realize what we need to learn by going back to ancestors and the elders.
My name is Thector.
I'm tired.
Okay, all right. I'm so glad I brought you on because.
All right.
Bark, bark, chicken, bark, bark, chicken head. Bark, bark, chicken, bark, bark,
Chicken head.
Boy, please, whatever. Chicken head.
Ooh, that came in my head.
See, I'm so glad that for any of you all that are watching out there, it is totally possible to have a doctorate in sing fucking chicken head. Okay, we're trying to be new representations. We're the real black-ish. Okay, I'm trying to be inspirational to some of the young boys out here. Be like me. Become me. Become us. You want to become us. Okay. From your experience as an academic and a practitioner, how can grassroots social justice movements improve themselves using the lessons you've learned through your practice of African spirituality? This positions you as a leader in this imagined reality.
I think we can learn what resistance looks like, and we can also learn what humility looks like better with both, right? Because even when we look at these movements, right, it's a very neurotic way of looking at it. So everyone saw Ferguson, which really was St. Louis, and they had been struggling for a long time. But the minute that spotlight was turned off and it was on to the next, we forgot about St. Louis, right? And in the process, activists have been killed by the state over and over since 2014, right? I think there's 7 activists that have been mysteriously shot or killed who were active and have been active since that kind of moment in the U.S. lexicon, right, happened. And I think what that shows us is that them folks were always there. Like, they were in community together, right? They struggled together, they theorized together, they fought together. And they realized that all skin folk weren't kinfolk, because some of the folks that did the most harm to Ferguson, the St. Louis community folks, were other black folks, other opportunistic black folks who wanted to be the face of movement, right?
And initiated into a high priest until you... Okay, I'm derailing.
I'm done.
Okay, I'm derailing.
But it's the same thing.
Okay, back to...
Come on,
PBS.
But let's lose that. Let's use that, though. You initiated into social justice organizing in 2 fucking years with the damn blue coat on.
Are you talking about that white man that be stealing donations?
That's the other one.
What's that white man name with the...
Talcum X?
No. Talcum X? Oh, shit. That's what they call him? Oh, my God. What's that man's name? They say
Martin Cream Jr.?
Martin... No. Sean King. I heard he be stealing money.
I heard that too, but I also heard that he'll sick on lawyers on you too if you accuse him of that.
I heard he be stealing money.
I don't know, but the thing is, whether he did or not, the fact of the matter is that we again are going to that lessons 50 years later. We're going back to.
But y'all need to stop disrespecting Sean King's name, because he was fighting in the civil rights movement for y'all black asses. Did you know that? He marched with Martin Luther King, bitch.
That's why I'm worried about what you'll have to say. What you'll have to say. When I confess to you that I'm feeling some type of way. Some type of way. If I could do it all over, just start again. Baby, I would've never been just your friend. If I could start all over, get a second chance, I would've listened to my heart and make you my man. 'Cause I don't wanna be friends. I don't wanna be friends. I don't wanna be friends.